Bill, whatever it is.
So 1 minute responses, please.
I only get one.
What's your first? You're getting 5.
My first would be I would like to get back involved in the construction defect laws in Colorado. I think we got very close to passing something last year. I'm tremendously concerned about the future for affordable home ownership in the state of Colorado. And if you talk to anybody who's in construction, and you know what a huge employer construction is in our state, and what positive construction does for our state, it's crippling. So I wouldn't say it's the only, but it would be the first, mostly because I think that there's appetite available to pass it.
So mine would be in regards to parent rights. So what you have now is a hodgepodge of issues that come together over whether parents have the right to drive their children's testing schedules and what that means for schools. You have a lot of things that are going on at the state level. How do you smooth that out? How do you make that process more streamlined? There's definitely appetite going on for that. There was an attempt to pass something like that last year, and this year I know there's a similar attempt. So having seen all the different things that affect what parents get to do and what schools get to do in response, I'd really like to make sure that the parent rights are addressed while understanding that we comply with federal law in regards to what testing means and what a lot of those school-based issues are. So that I have a number of specific ideas on that.
My first bill would be to completely repeal the high-capacity magazine ban law. I don't think we should have any compromise in our Second Amendment rights.
Well, that was cool.
I yield the rest of my time to Just Logan.
All right. So I'm going to go to the most basic thing, life. I will fight tooth and nail for the life of the individual. Right now, we spend our tax dollars on fetal research, abortion. We let Planned Parenthood in. I get really upset. That's it. I will, and I know we have to go after it in a way that can pass. So we'll eat the elephant. But I'm going to defund every inch of it.
Anyone else with another question?
Come on, have fun.
Your wife.
So my question is, you guys all gave phenomenal speeches, like every one of you have, and it's a good point. So I want to know, in your own words, what do you think differentiates you from your other candidates, and why do you feel you're stronger?
Okay. Kind of a little bit what my speech was about. For me, I think that the real driving factor is my faith in my foundation and being a core part of this community. I've testified for the last several years in the legislature where I want to go work for life, for Second Amendment, return of our Second Amendment rights, for parental rights, for educational overreach. So I think the reason I'm running is because this is my home and I'll protect it no matter what. So that's it.
Thanks, Aubrey. Great question. Like one of the candidates said earlier today, there's not a lot of daylight between us on the issues up here. We're all pretty conservative. I think something that sets me apart from the other candidates, though, is leadership experience. And that's very important. We need to elect a leader from Douglas County who can stand and deliver from day one for our values down here. And for nearly 2 decades, I've sought out very challenging leadership experiences. D1 scholarship athlete, team captain, platoon leader, company commander in combat, trusted advisor to boards of directors and CEOs. And I'm going to be able to take that leadership and be a respected and strong advocate for our values here in Douglas County from day one. So I think that's what I bring to the table. It's a little bit different.
So I appreciate your question. I would say that I have practical leadership experience. As president of your school board, I've stood up and I've talked to everyone from our state delegation to our congressmen to local government officials, and understanding what those issues are, being able to hit the ground running, having those relationships. I'm not asking you to believe a political ad or other talking points or issues. I'm asking you to look at my record and understand what I've done already.
So again, thanks for the question. This may be the first forum where people have asked questions that weren't intended to embarrass the speakers. So kudos to everybody. Normally somebody throws out some obscure bill from 30 years ago, so thanks for that. I think the most important thing I can say as far as differentiating between the opposition here is that I do not think I'm a better person than anybody who's up here. I respect these people. I voted for some of these people. So this is a good group of folks. So to say that you're different, I don't want anybody to confuse that with saying I'm better, because that's absolutely not the point. But what I do bring, it's obvious, is business experience. It's that for 20 some odd years in Colorado, living in Parker, I have ran businesses, multiple businesses. I have sold some businesses. I have hired, again, tons of employees. So everything that I would do in office would be looked at through the lens of how is this going to impact economic prosperity? What is this going to do for jobs in Colorado? Because I love my guns, I really do. I'm certainly pro-life, but I remember back in 2009, people were talking to me about guns and life. People were talking to me about the fact they didn't have jobs anymore, and they couldn't pay their mortgages anymore. So, to me, that would be it. Am I on time? Okay. So thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. Other questions? And just so you guys know, when I do this, it typically means 10 seconds to kind of wrap it up. So.
I thought I had 50 seconds because I don't take out
5, 10, 5 minutes.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, we're all the time here.
I thought it was an unfair advantage when you did there, Ben. Standing up.
Standing up.
Right here.
Serious.
Look at this guy. He's got a game. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Go ahead, please.
In 2009, Representative Jerry Sonderberg and I took a bill to he's now a senator, took a bill to the Capitol for Lotto for Education. I would like to dust that off and revamp that back down the pipe to the Capitol. We want Lotto for Education for hands-on trades. Right now we have $2.8 billion sitting in trust funds for conservation. GOCA provide land to stop cattlemen from raising cattle and grazing cattle and doing things like that, and help build your skateboard parks and your different things like that. If we want a skateboard park, I think we should pass a bond for that, and not our teachers and our educators. Are you for or against a Lotto for Education type of bill where the money for Lotto, like in 38 other states in Colorado, or in the United States, have Lotto for Education? Are you for or against, and what would you use that money for? That's it. Any questions?
Me again?
Yeah.
So, Brad, thanks for the question. Honestly, and I've said this in all the conversations that I've had with folks over the course of the last 2 weeks, which is between now and the time you all decide who you want to be your next state senator, I have things to learn about. The 2 things that I want to learn the most about, number 1 is water, number 2 is education. So, having not experienced it personally, candidly, and I know I'm on tape, so I'm sure this is going to come back to bite me, I don't want to give you a BS answer. It's something that I need to look a lot more into before I give you a fair opinion on it. So at this point in time, I would say I'll email you in a few weeks. Sounds great.
Well, thank you for the question, Brad. I know we've discussed this issue in the past. I am in favor of having additional funding sources, particularly if there's a trigger point where we can look at economic times and understand what needs we have in the state budget. So you had a great idea with the vocational, the VOTEC type education, the career and technical education is something that I think a lot of people don't know a lot about. Don't know what the offerings, particularly of our school district, are, but statewide. So I am in favor of that. I would suggest maybe the Red Crayon campaign ought to be a little different than it was last time. If you don't know, Brad and friends mailed a bunch of red crayons to the governor, and if there were so many of them, it was considered to be hazmat. So there were a lot of people that were upset about that, so I think we could find a way to raise awareness about that and then help people understand what the campaign is about and give you a lot of support.
Rod, are you talking about those scratch-off tickets you can buy at 7-Eleven? Is that type of thing?
Lotto, period.
Okay.
Colorado Lotto Formation, period.
Yeah.
Huge part of the city.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's important that we make sure it actually goes to education, not somewhere else in the budget. And I also want to make sure that, I just like you guys to know, I don't necessarily believe there's a one-to-one correlation between the amount of dollars spent in the school and the quality of the education. In fact, a lot of schools in this country spend a lot of money on their education per pupil, put out some pretty bad product. And I just wanted to mention that as well, and I think it's a fantastic idea.
Let's do it. You know, I think that's great. I want to do things like getting the industry involved and have ways for them to be able to invest in the education in their area where they're trying to get their next generation of workers. So absolutely, let's find one other path. We have to make sure and put those safeties in place to make sure that nobody can steal that money later down the road. And also another thing that I want to do is level out the playing field, the way that money's distributed. I want that money, just as much of it to come to Douglas County as it does Arapahoe County, Denver County. I'm done with this uneven distribution of education dollars. So, but more sources, and especially voluntary sources like that, absolutely, let's do it.
Any other questions?
What would you all do? Obviously, I know who I'm voting for, but I think this is an important issue. What would you do to fix the state budget? Excuse me. Right now we have a budget crunch. What would you do to fix the state budget? How would you? We've got a lot of different competing interests.
So hear that?
Sorry.
So what would you do to fix the state budget? Fix the state budget, right?
Well, that's a big one. That's a big one, but we start, I also have business experience. I've started a couple of companies. I've got a lot of experience dealing with books too. And the first thing that you do, because I've got a lot of experience contracting with the government, is you start looking at the waste. You start looking at the things that are frivolous and unnecessary. What is actually authorized by the Constitution? That's something that people don't ever look at. But the Constitution is the basis. We have a state constitution, we have a federal constitution. And that gives us the guideline of what is actually authorized or not. So I would start with an audit and start cutting. So.
If I'm looking at the budget for ways to be more efficient, I'm kind of looking at three things. First, big ticket items, then fraud, waste, and abuse, and then pet projects. When I think about big ticket items, one of the first things that comes to mind for me is Medicaid. We have a lot of money coming through Medicaid. We expanded Medicaid back in 2013. It was a big and expensive mistake. Back in 2013, before we expanded Medicaid, we had 1 in 7 Coloradans signed up for Medicaid. Today, we have about 1 in 5 Coloradans signed up for Medicaid. And by the end of this year, it's expected that 1 in 4 Coloradans will be on the Medicaid rolls. It's simply unsustainable. And on top of that, it's immoral because Medicaid needs to be reserved for the poorest and most needy among us. So those guys get shortchanged. In addition to that, money is diverted from other important areas of the budget. So I take a really good look at that. You know, also look at fraud, waste, and abuse. Connect for Health Colorado is a minefield for that. And as far as pet projects go, there's a ton of them. You know, bus service to Colorado Springs, bike lanes, you name it. Those things are small in the individual, but when you roll them up in the aggregate, they move the needle.
So in my time on the school board, I've seen particular things that are mandated from the state in terms of budget. So one thing that is eating up an ever-increasing share of state agencies is PARA, the Public Employees Retirement Association. That is, when I first got on the board, just 6 years ago, it was single digits. Now it's approaching 20%. That is a responsibility of the state employer that is taking away from the mission that the state government is supposed to be doing. If we're talking about lean government that's supposed to do what it's supposed to do, then how can you do that when you have an ever-mandated increasing load worth of benefits that people were promised? So now you have this it's local agencies that are closest to you. How do you make government better? How do you fix that particular thing? Then you look at the general fund, what makes that up? Then you talk about ever increasing shares of K-12 education. We have a mandated amendment right now, Amendment 23, that mandates increased spending every single year on education. That squeezes all the other areas. And that forces a lopsided set of spending that creates a lot of issues with the state budget. So this is a huge topic to talk about in 1 minute, but I would love to talk to any one of you about my ideas about the state budget. Thank you so much.
I agree. It's a very complicated problem and a great question. I think a lot of it starts with getting into power. Really, I mean, the Republican Party has been so hamstrung for so long that it's very hard to do what we as Republicans want to do and need to do. So the very first thing to do would be to win more seats, and I have a plan for that. And so again, if I can call you or email you, I'll let you know exactly what my plan would be for that. But what I see that we could do short term is A, have more people pledge to defend Tabor at sort of all costs. And then finally look within, I love Justice's point, look within the existing agencies and what they're doing today. I am also, like Ben, in a very, very regulated industry. However, having back spasms for the first time about 6 months ago, I got the pleasure of going to a chiropractor who's regulated, who then sent me to a massage therapist who's regulated. And on my way home, I got a haircut from somebody who was regulated. It's just regulation after regulation after regulation. So I think there's a tremendous amount of inefficiencies and ineffectiveness in those regulatory agencies where we could save a tremendous amount of money.
Sorry, Brad. All right. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think I know the answer from one of our candidates already, but if you were to think about your faith and your religion, if you have one, and if you were to think about your moral compass and what guides you, what would your response be?
I'm actually surprised you asked that question, but I'm grateful for it. So I've been a member of Ave Maria Parish since I moved into Parker. So I'm Catholic, and the very last thing that I did before filing my paperwork as a candidate was I met with Father Gus, and I prayed with Father Gus, and it was a big turning point in me deciding to do this. Everything that I do in my life has God in the middle of it. I don't broadcast it. I don't wear it on my sleeve. You might want to talk to my fellow Knights of Columbus, of Council 7880 at Ave Maria. But it's hugely important to me. It's my compass for absolutely everything. I wouldn't have a darn thing without God. So I appreciate the question of being able to answer it in this form.
So I was raised in a Foreign Service family, and I spent a bunch of time in countries that either did not allow worship, I spent time behind the Iron Curtain, or were very restrictive about it. I spent time in the Middle East in a Muslim dictatorship. So I've seen what society can turn into when you don't have that strong compass, and I'm proud to say that I've kept mine. I've developed mine and I've kept mine. I've been personally touched by God. It really means a lot to me. It's not something I discuss with a lot of people. I'm very, very private about my faith. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak about it. I probably won't hear me speak about it again. But it means a lot. It's very, very deeply meaningful to me. And what God has done in my life, I would be here without it. And so I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you at all. I would not be part of your lives. I wouldn't be here. So it's a very deeply spiritual person I am, and I was raised in a family like that, and I know where without it.
My moral compass is guided by the Bible. And I also believe that God was holding the hands of the men who wrote the founding documents for our country. And that's why we're at the place where we are today. We're pretty much better than all the other countries in the world. In the military, I spent about 18 months living in countries that are ruled by essentially Muslim theocracies. They didn't have God guiding the hands of them in the creation of their countries. And we can see a big difference in almost every aspect of our lives compared to theirs.
Well, I don't know that I need to say too much. I'm very transparent about mine because it's who I am. It's who I am. I'm a Christian father, Colorado native, and it defines me. And really, there's not a lot more to say beyond that. I think that the Judeo-Christian foundation of this country, I think that God was at the hand of those that penned our founding documents, and I think that the intent has been stripped out year after year. I'll give one quick example. We just had the anniversary of the Challenger, and when we lost the Challenger, my grade school class, we emptied out to the field, we held hands, we prayed. Who's going to get sued today because of that? We have teachers suing schools for letting the students pray before class. I can't stand for it, and that's absolutely who I am. So, thanks.
Do you have any other questions?
I have a question. She asked someone else. Okay, so as Jessica said, we've lived here for quite a while. There's a lot of pride in Douglas County. And there's a lot of protectiveness in Douglas County. We want to make sure we elect somebody that's looking out for all our values and not looking out for personal gain. Not saying that's what you guys are doing it for, but still, we're trying to be careful about who we pick because we don't want somebody that A, that's going to leave once they're elected for something better, or B, not represent us. Okay? Because they need to know who we are and talk to everybody. You can't do that unless you've been here for a while or spend time with us. So my question is, how long have each of you been in the Senate district, and what is the reason why you're running?
Almost 8 years. So we've raised our kids here. So this is, you know, we've given our all to build who we are and build our foundation right here in Douglas County. And no matter what, we'll always be proud and call this home. And that's about all I have.
What's your reason for running?
Well, my reason for running is for standing up for our values that have shifted. I mean, the central foundation of who Colorado is has shifted off of its core. And that goes back to the Judeo-Christian foundation. Plus, knowing this community and fighting for it, we stood at the door when Obama tried to come and commandeer through AFFH. And it's an agenda where they give about $50,000 a year to Castle Rock, and then in return we give them all of the zoning rights plus other rights to be attributed later. I stood with our town council and we voted it down, one of the first municipalities ever to do that. That set off the liberals, but so.
I've lived in Senate District 4 since October 2015, and I'm sorry that some people think that the amount of time that someone's lived in a house is really a big deal. Our state is in crisis. We have lost our gun control. We have lost our gun rights. We have a governor who has running an out-of-control state budget. We have the most anti-life laws in this part of the country. We have very serious issues facing our state right now. And I would say to anyone who's interested in that, I'd love to talk about where I've lived. The first half of my career, I didn't choose where I got to live. I was in the service of the nation, so that's where I had to go. I'm very proud to live in Douglas County, and I'm very proud to call Colorado my home, as I've called Colorado my home for almost 10 years now. So thanks for your question.
So I'm a Colorado native, and we've lived in our North Parker neighborhood for about 10 years. I'm actually pretty excited about it because, you know, when I stepped into my school board seat 6 years ago, I felt like a really part of the community and really understanding what was important to people there, and that's only strengthened over the course of time. As I said a little bit during my speech, the reason I'm running is because you see increasing, even since I've been in the school board, you're seeing increasing state regulation on areas of over education, but also over so many other different areas. And how do you work at the state level to change those, to fix those, to roll those back, and to stand up for what we believe in, and protect what we consider to be important here at home, while also looking at outward statewide and saying, you know, what is best for the citizens of our district and District 4, and what is best for the citizens of Colorado. What's going on at the state level right now is not what's best for the citizens of Colorado.
Thanks again for your question. Again, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we moved to Parker February 1986. I moved to Colorado in December of '93, so basically after my first year here, my wife, having been a farm girl from Kansas, wanted something that looked like a farm in Kansas. And believe it or not, back then, that's what Parker was. Four-way stop sign. Everybody remember the four-way stop sign on Arapahoe Road and Parker Road? That's all it was. Four-way stop sign, 2 lanes to get to Parker. So I don't think living in the district for me, and please don't take any offense to this at all, I don't think that it necessarily makes me a better candidate, but I think it does give me a perspective. And I see what Douglas County was, and I see what it is today. And if anybody here is from Elbert County, again, I don't mean any disrespect, but Douglas County's done great things when you look at our neighboring counties. And I think having a perspective really helps with that. So, but the real reason why I'm running is because I have seen that transformation, and I want it to continue. I don't want to be in a county that's starting to get dilapidated or ignoring its schools or not bringing businesses to the county anymore, and we end up with the mag pools of the world. So that's why I'm running. Economic prosperity is one of my very first principles, and I think I'm the best person to bring that to the county. Thank you.
All right, guys, I think that was a great question to close it out with. I just want to obviously thank everyone here. You guys are all dedicated to our community. Thank you so much for